Long ago, in an age beyond memory, before the arrival of Terraria's great champion, before the time of the guide's untold heroism, before even the time of the great god Cthulhu, Terraria was a much different place. It was a land filled with terrible creatures, ruled over by ancient lords. In this forgotten era, the world was subjugated by another eldritch horror, the creator of the terrible corruption that exists in places to this day, one of the outer gods themselves, the crawling chaos, Nyarlathotep. And this is his story.
Hello, my honey. Hello, my rack.
In a time before time itself existed, the demon Sultan Azathoth, dreamer of all, birthed Nyarlathotep, and along with his fellow outer gods, they conducted unknowable cosmic affairs beyond the furthest stars. It became apparent though that Nyarlathotep was different. He took pleasures in scrutinizing lower beings, interfering in their lives, corrupting their minds. Soon enough he broke away from the pantheon of outer gods and found a world he saw to have potential for endless entertainment. Terraria. Here he could toy with the primitives for all eternity, and so he did. He remained for so long that even his very being fused with the world around him, his essence creeping into the earth, corrupting the land itself. Eventually the sedentary stature of Nyarlathotep dominated the corrupted world, his titanic limbs clawing at the land, the great tentacle bound to his head thrashing at the dark skies, and his poison transforming natives into terrible creatures that would consume the souls of the living. Eternity is a very long time though, too long for even the greatest of the elder gods. Separated from the pantheon and trapped as part of a world he subjugated, Nyarlathotep began to die. In a desperate attempt to save himself, he commanded his subjects to construct a great temple into the earth, into Nyarlathotep himself, that he could use to contact the outer gods so that they may save him. For millennia he beckoned them, the mass of writhing tentacles that was his body slowly breaking apart, each part escaping into the vast surrounding corruption in an attempt to live on. But there was no reply. In time his huge head slumped to the ground, the tentacle writhing, tearing itself away from his body and vanishing into the ground to consume the very earth itself for sustenance. The people of Terraria would come to call this the Eater of Worlds, and the multitude of smaller tentacles that freed themselves from the whole World Eaters. Eventually the imposing shape of Nyarlathotep was nothing but a slumped pile of rotting flesh and bones, but still life did not completely escape him. With his dominion over Terraria ending, the corruption had begun to retreat, only appearing where the World Eaters burrowed, and life at last returned to the world. Over further eternities though, the spark of life still within the outer god caused his bones to twitch, and eventually animate, but he was far from what he once was. Seeing the success of the ecosystem that had come from him, he realised he needed to feed to remain alive. Having not given up on the possibility of rescue, he travelled to the derelict temple that had been built in his honour, now merely a rotten dungeon, and preyed on lost travellers to replenish his strength. The townspeople soon realised that something terrible now dwelt within the dungeon, a skeleton that fed on friends and family. Having forgotten his true name, they dubbed him Skeletron and avoided his lair the best they could. Too weak to make a direct attack on the ever-strengthening towns of Terraria, he used what strength he had left to enslave the mind of a wandering clothier from the nearby town. Bestowing on him unnatural long life, Skeletron compelled him to kidnap and sacrifice townsfolk to his new master. Now, all Skeletron had to do was wait for his brethren to finally answer his beacon. At last, after too long of waiting, the beacon would hear a response, but not the one that was expected. In Nyarlathotep's absence from the cosmic pantheon, a new set of deities had taken up control of the heavens and searched for new lands to conquer. Seeing Terraria as fit for the taking, the Moon Lord commanded his brother to subdue and take control of the world. So from the sky came Cthulhu, obliterating anything in its way to demonstrate his power. Of course Cthulhu knew of the fallen outer god, but allowed him to continue to live in his meagre existence. After all, it was his beacon that drew him to Terraria. And besides, he found Skeletron's pitiful situation amusing. With Cthulhu's rule solidified, it would take a miracle to overthrow him. So, after eons of the Great Old One's terrible rule, when that miracle arrived at the dungeon in the form of the guide seeking answers, Skeletron allowed him one-time passage to access the forbidden knowledge that lay inside, left from the age of his rule as Nyarlathotep. Cthulhu, or at least what was left of him, would eventually be overthrown, but even then Skeletron would remain, a rotting relic from a forgotten era. So, finally accepting he would never be rescued, he almost welcomed his fate when a champion of Terraria arrived to put his bones to rest. But then, nothing ever truly dies, and he would be resurrected once more to conduct the Moonlord's biddings as he tried to recapture Terraria. Some believe him to still be alive as Skeletron Prime. Others believe that he had last managed to return for stars, accepting and embracing his new form as the terrible Omegatron. What is for sure is that the creature we know as Skeletron is just the final echoes of an all-powerful, godlike creature that had possibly the biggest impact on Terraria. What was once the Outer God known as Nyarlathotep may be long dead, but the impact he had on Terraria ensures that its fate has been utterly changed forever.